A kind waitress paid for an old man's coffee, never knowing he was a billionaire looking for his future wife. The downtown cafe buzzed with morning activity as rain pattered against the large windows, blurring the cityscape beyond. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of rain-soaked pavement, creating a comforting ambience for the patrons seeking refuge from the dreary weather. Amid the clatter of cups and murmur of conversations, the doors swung open, allowing a gust of chilly air to sweep through the cafe. A man in his early 50s stepped inside, his threadbare coat dripping with rain and his scuffed shoes leaving faint prints on the polished floor. His salt and pepper hair was damp, clinging to his forehead, and his eyes held a weariness that spoke of hardships endured. He approached the counter hesitantly, his gaze flickering over the menu before settling on the young barista behind the register. With a voice barely above a whisper, he requested a simple black coffee. As the barista rang up the order, the man reached into his pockets, his movements growing increasingly frantic as he searched for his wallet. His face paled, and he swallowed hard before speaking, his voice tinged with embarrassment. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I must have left my wallet at home. If it's all right, could I just sit here for a while until the rain lets up?" The barista, a young man with a sharp jawline and an even sharper tongue, crossed his arms over his chest and smirked. "Look, buddy," he said loudly, drawing the attention of nearby customers. "This isn't a shelter. We don't give out freebies to folks who can't pay. If you don't have money, you can't stay." The man's cheeks flushed a deep crimson as he took a step back, his eyes darting to the floor. "I wasn't asking for a free drink," he murmured. "Just a place to stay dry for a bit." A snide chuckle rose from a table nearby, where a group of well-dressed patrons sat observing the scene. "Imagine that," one of them sneered, "coming into a cafe without a dime and expecting to be served. Some people have no shame," another chimed in, their voice dripping with disdain. "Times must be tough if beggars are now aspiring to be cafe connoisseurs." The man's shoulders hunched as he turned toward the door, the weight of humiliation pressing heavily upon him. From across the room, Emma, a 29-year-old waitress with auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail, observed the exchange. Her hazel eyes, usually warm and inviting, now burned with indignation. Balancing a tray laden with empty cups and plates, she navigated through the crowded cafe toward the counter. Setting the tray down with a decisive clatter, she reached into the pocket of her modest uniform and retrieved a $5 bill, placing it firmly on the counter. "That's enough," she said, her voice steady and clear, cutting through the murmurs that had begun to spread. The barista's smirk faltered as he looked at her. "Emma, what are you doing?" he scoffed. "You don't have to pay for this guy. He can't just come in here and expect handouts." Emma's gaze swept over the assembled patrons, her expression unwavering. "I'm covering his coffee," she stated, "not out of pity, but because I know what it's like to be judged for not having enough." A derisive laugh erupted from the corner of the room. "How noble," a man jeered. "A waitress playing the hero. Maybe you're hoping for a tip from him later." Emma turned to face the room, her posture erect and her voice resonant with conviction. "Kindness isn't a transaction," she declared. "It doesn't diminish us to show compassion. But belittling others, that reveals true smallness." The cafe fell silent, the previous undercurrent of mockery replaced by a palpable sense of introspection. Emma turned back to the man, offering him a gentle smile. "Please, have a seat," she invited. "I'll bring your coffee over shortly. Don't let the harsh words of others define your worth." The man met her gaze, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. He nodded appreciatively and found a seat by the window, where the rain continued to cascade down the glass. As Emma prepared his coffee, the atmosphere in the cafe shifted subtly. Patrons avoided meeting her eyes, their earlier amusement now replaced with a subdued contemplation. In that moment, Emma, despite her modest means and the scorn of others, stood as a beacon of dignity and empathy. And the man, once deemed unworthy by those around him, found solace in the simple act of being seen and valued. The moment in the cafe still echoed in Emma's mind as she cleared the last table of her shift. No one had spoken to her directly since, but the stares, the whispers, and the silence hung in the air like smoke. The next morning, her manager Brian called her into the office. The small room smelled like burnt coffee and bleach. "Close the door," he said. Emma obeyed. Brian crossed his arms. "This is a business, Emma, not your charity project." She stayed quiet. "You don't get to decide who gets freebies," he continued. "If you want to play Mother Teresa, do it off the clock. I paid for it," she said calmly. "That's not the point," he snapped. "You embarrassed your coworker and made customers uncomfortable." Emma looked him in the eye. "No, he embarrassed himself." "Don't test me," Brian said sharply. "You're here to serve, not lecture." A beat of silence. "Can I go?" she asked. "Get out, and remember your place." Back in the kitchen, Marcy and Josh stood by the sink. They went quiet when she walked in. As she passed, Marcy muttered just loud enough, "Must be nice, acting noble when you still split rent with your kid sister." Josh chuckled. Bet she thought the guy was a secret millionaire. Emma said nothing. She grabbed her coat, signed out, and stepped into the drizzle outside. The air smelled of wet pavement and city smoke. She didn't rush. The apartment she shared with Lily was cramped, a one-bedroom with peeling paint and a drafty window. Lily lay curled on the couch, shivering under a blanket. "Hey," Emma whispered, brushing her sister's forehead. "You're late," Lily murmured. Emma smiled. "Got caught in the rain." She reheated old porridge, added a pinch of salt and handed it to her sister. Then she checked her wallet. $3. One subway token. A faded photo of their mom. She looked at the money, folded it slowly, and slid it back in. No regret. Not for the coffee, not for anything. After Lily drifted to sleep, Emma sat by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Her reflection stared back, tired, pale, but with a quiet strength still glowing underneath. Her thoughts slipped back to years ago, 15 maybe, when their mother collapsed in a street market. People had passed without stopping. All but one. An old woman in a patched skirt had knelt beside them, offering water and wrapping a shawl around Emma's shoulders. Emma never knew her name, but she remembered her kindness. That moment became a promise, so when she saw that man in the cafe, wet, ashamed, invisible, there was no decision to make. She did what needed to be done. The judgment didn't matter. She mattered. That night, before turning off the light, she whispered into the dark, just for herself, "I'd rather be mocked for doing the right thing than praised for staying silent." And in that little apartment, with nothing to spare but her own dignity, Emma felt something rare. Peace. It had been 4 days since the incident, 4 long shifts filled with half-heard whispers and glances that lingered a little too long. Emma had learned to live with being invisible, but now she was visible for something she hadn't asked for, and the stares felt heavier than silence ever had. That morning the cafe hummed as usual, cups clinking, steam hissing, idle conversation. Emma moved from table to table, wiping crumbs, stacking plates, offering polite smiles. Then the doorbell chimed. She didn't look up right away. But something shifted. The air stilled, and curiosity tugged at her. She glanced toward the door. A tall man entered, dressed in a charcoal suit and silk scarf, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed. His polished shoes tapped lightly across the floor. He looked like a man who belonged in a glass tower, not this modest cafe, but there was something unmistakable in his eyes. Emma froze. He didn't go to the counter. He walked to the table by the window, the same seat where a soaked, humiliated man had once sat, and took it without a word. Emma gripped the cloth in her hand. Her heart thudded. She approached with a menu, unsure whether to act like she didn't know or to speak the truth aloud. Before she could say anything, he looked up. "I'm not here to order." She paused. "I only have one question," he said. "Why did you help me?" Emma blinked. I just couldn't watch it happen. You didn't know me. You had nothing to gain." She hesitated. "You didn't look like someone asking for a handout. You looked like someone being made to feel small, and I know that feeling." She sat down across from him, setting the menu aside. "When I was 17, she said, my mom collapsed in a market. No one helped. They walked around her like she was a problem. Except one woman, an old lady with barely anything herself. She stayed, and I promised I'd be like her if I ever got the chance." He didn't interrupt. He just listened. "That day," she said softly, "I remembered that promise." A few beats of silence passed. Then he asked, "Do you read?" Emma blinked.